everyone. I'm Connie Zach, co-owner of Sunlighten, hosting today's Sunlighten Spotlight. My favorite thing to do is to talk to wellness leaders and experts in this wonderful space that we are in and learn and be enlightened in the work that they're doing. And today, joining me is Yona Stern, who is the founder, the CEO, chairman of HapBee, which is a wearable technology company. And it is fascinating what he has created. And he has a lot of experience, in this type of technology world and disrupting categories. And so today he's going to share with us more about his company, how he created it, why he created it, and what it can do for you. So welcome, Yona.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for having me. Super excited.
Thank you. So let's start with a little bit more background about, who you are and what brought you to create, this technology, because it's very, very unique. And you were doing transportation app before, correct? At Arrive. So
That's right.
I was trying to, connect the dots. If you could help me, that would be fabulous.
Yeah. So I was just a little north of you guys, up in Chicago for 4 years, working on another interesting opportunity, which was parking. Like, how do people park? And apologies for people. People made fun of me the last time. I think we were chatting before. Last time I was in Kansas City, I referred to your stadium as Arrowhead, and everybody kind of chuckled that was my Canadian pronunciation. But I didn't. First of all, I could be clear. I didn't invent the product. I'm not the founder. I am the CEO. And when I was kind of wrapping up my last company, we were selling it after 4 years of running it and running parking at all these stadiums in all these cities. I was kind of thinking about what the next chapter of my life was going to look like. And I'm an entrepreneur. I've been doing tech entrepreneurship for 25 years. You could tell by my hairline, I'm of an older vintage. And I've had an issue with sleep. I also am not fond of putting chemicals in my body. I won't even take a Tylenol if I have a headache. And so I won't say that I was big into wellness. It certainly wasn't a big thing for me. It wasn't a big focus in my life. But HapBee was introduced to me as a concept. Somebody called me, said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Just sold my company." They said, "You should take a look at this wellness tech." And I was like, don't really know much about it. They showed me HapBee, and I have to be honest, my first reaction was, that's cool. Sounds like a Marvel movie. Sounds really science fiction-y. Like the idea that rather than putting something in your body, you could stimulate or elicit a similar response through magnetic waves. I get it. But then again, I started thinking about it. I was like, well, if you would have told me 10 years ago that I could have a call like this without, this is all through magnetic waves, and that I could charge my phone without plugging it into the wall through induction, I also would have said, no, that's science fiction. And so I took a deeper look, and they sent me the product. And I put it on, and I slept through the night for the first time in 4 years. Now, placebo, suggestive, or tech, I wasn't sure, but I immediately went from skeptical, highly skeptical, dismissive skeptical, to curious. And then I started doing research, and I did about 3 months of research, and I had the delight of meeting the people who did invent the tech, these incredible biotechnical chemists and physicists in Seattle. And it was at that point that I was convinced that this was a technology that could change people's lives. The ability to help people sleep, help people focus, help people relax without ingesting chemicals. I guess about the only time I'd ever seen anything like that was when I encountered your website. And that's why I was so delighted to chat with you today, because I said, wow, two purpose-led companies on a very similar mission. to offer people a wellness solution without chemicals or the side effects thereof. Sounds like it's the right time in my life to pursue that. So that's how I got here. I went from skeptic to curious to ambassador and CEO.
That is just fascinating. And how long have you been doing this now?
It's coming up on a year. So this summer will be
new.
one year. It's been an amazing journey of discovery. You know, an industry, but also of people and challenges that I, quite frankly, didn't even know existed. You know, I think one of the things that was so remarkable to me, I think I was on the job for 2 weeks. As they say, I was still figuring out where the bathroom was. And I started getting inbounds on LinkedIn. Not your typical, hey, let's chat, I'm a vendor type of stuff. Really, like emotional, powerful things from people running veteran support groups, spousal support groups, professional athletes. I heard so many stories about people who were struggling with drug, alcohol, narcotics related, you know, kind of chemical side effects that were looking for an alternative and were either believers or desperate and hopeful for an alternative. But kind of like the unifying theme on everyone who was reaching out to us and to me even personally was like, I really hope this works. And so we've kind of taken that path with the product. It's really been an amazing journey so far.
So take me through, or us, all these people that are watching, the science behind the technology and how, like, specifically, if we can just take sleep, for example, because that's something that Sunlighten's really passionate about as well, is improving the quality of sleep through our technology. So how do these waves work on your brain? And do people wear the technology, and what can they expect, and all of that?
Excellent question. And I'm going to apologize in advance because the last time I took a science class was grade 9. So this is going to be about that level. Maybe
that's perfect.
Just a step below grade 9. So Albert Einstein, we all know who he was. Genius guy, big hair, theory of relativity, all of that stuff. You know, in 1920, he predicted that most of what's going on in our bodies was not chemical, that most of the reactions in our body were electromagnetic. Not a big shock there, right? I mean, we know that our brains fire that way, and we know that even plants can communicate with one another through electromagnetic pulses and signals. So not a big shock, but what scientists figured out about 15 years ago was that when we ingest things in our body, a cup of coffee, an Adderall pill, melatonin for sleep, adenosine, which is the active ingredient in most sleeping pills, makes you drowsy. Nicotine, it's in cigarettes, but it's a very powerful focusing agent for people who need to focus. All of these substances, when we ingest them, either we smoke them or we eat them in chocolate or we drink them in a Red Bull or in a Diet Coke, when they get metabolized in our system, what triggers that response, focus or awake or drowsiness or deep sleep, is not chemical. It's not like there's a chemical that's coursing through our veins and it opens up the focus receptors. That's not what happens. What actually happens is when your body metabolizes it, if you can imagine the molecules, the tiny particles that make up these substances, they resonate. They rub together like a cricket would, right? And it releases a resonance. Now that resonance or that song is magnetic in nature. And when the bioreceptors in our bodies, in our cells, in our central nervous system, in our brain hear, when they're stimulated by that resonance, we get the effect. We have deeper sleep. We are clearer. We get drowsy. If you have THC, that's where the high comes from. CBD, by the way, it's bioreceptors in cells. So yes, it can affect the brain, but CBD can also be used for pain and relaxation just as well. And so what HapBee basically does is it bypasses you putting all that stuff in your body and metabolizing it so that you can release these magnetic signals. All you need to do is have a device that can play the signal. Choose the signal that you want to play on your app. There you go. And voila. Now, what a lot of people do during the day is they'll wear this as such, and it'll release a very, very, very low energy magnetic field, and it'll stimulate your brain instead of you putting stuff in your body. The aha moment for me was putting this under my pillow at night. That's what I do. I don't wear it. I don't find it particularly comfortable to wear at night. So I put it under my pillow, and it's just as effective under a pillow. But think of HapBee as Spotify for how you want to feel or sleep. So instead of ingesting stuff, you can just choose how you want to feel. You play it, and you will elicit that reaction in your body. And I think one of the interesting things that we have seen is when you can combine something like this with a Sunlighten, that's where 1 and 1 in our experience equals 3. Where you can have a relaxing either morning experience for getting your day started and being more focused and refreshed. You can combine that with one of our focus or awake signals, which would be a replacement for putting caffeine in your body. I don't know about you, but if I have a coffee after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm done. And the reason is, I'm done with sleep. My sleep will be impaired. And the reason for that is because my body continues to metabolize that caffeine and release the signals for 12 hours. It's not just the 45 minutes when I needed the afternoon boost or where I took a piece of chocolate at 4 o'clock, which releases theobromine in my system and gives me a dopamine rush. That metabolizing continues long after the desired effect is required. And that's part of the big problem. I know I'm going on and on, but one of the interesting things we saw when we did data analysis, so we reached out to all of our customers, and we said, if you've got a Whoop or if you've got a Fitbit or you've got an Oura Ring, we'd love to see if there's a correlation between HapBee use, specific type of HapBee use, and improved sleep. That would be really cool. So we did it. About 80 people sent us their Oura Ring data. And then we had a bunch of analysts in, dark lit rooms in Seattle sit there and correlate data. And then they, of course, they sent me this statistical analysis that I was kind of staring at and realizing I guess I should have taken one more stats class because I didn't understand what it meant. But then they walked me through it, kind of grade 9 level. And it was abundantly clear that if you used one of our deep sleep, relax, or calming signals, you slept better across the board. But here was the amazing one. If you used our caffeine signal or our nicotine signal instead of nicotine or caffeine during the day, you also slept better. And it wasn't because of the presence of a calming signal. It was because of the absence of ongoing metabolizing of caffeine or nicotine in your system long after.
Oh, okay.
That to me I was like, that's exactly what we're going for. And so I think you take something like this, which is non-ingestive, non-invasive, non-chemical, and you combine it with Sunlighten, I think you've got something really, really special with those two things together.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I want to make sure I understand that correctly. So what you're saying is that, okay, so if I have a cup of coffee in the morning, what you're saying is instead of having a cup of coffee in the morning, then you wear the device and you specifically choose the is it called?
It's called morning coffee.
Okay, there you go.
Conveniently.
So there you choose the morning coffee electrodes, or morning coffee, what do you call them?
We call them either signals or blends.
Signal. Yep. Okay, morning coffee signal. So what you're saying is, if I'm having the morning coffee signal, not the real morning coffee, then this signal is going to, is going to replace that artificial elevation. And so when I'm going to sleep at night, I'm using the signal to help my brain versus the caffeine that I'm ingested, and I'm going to have a better night's sleep.
There's no question about it.
Isn't that interesting?
We've seen it in the data. Yeah. So there's kind of two benefits. One, obviously, if you play that's what I did. I played something called deep sleep, which is a melatonin signal. And we've been able to see somewhere between 15 and 19 minutes of incremental REM sleep on average if you play the melatonin signal. But then you're not putting melatonin in your body.
Right.
I'm not saying melatonin's good or bad. I'm just saying that when you put something like that in your body, it's going to metabolize for a much longer period of time than you want it to happen. I'll give you an example that we heard, again, part of my learning journey, from some pro athletes who use our product. So we had a pitcher who was on the Atlanta Braves who went on to win the World Series, and he's a HapBee user. And in conversations with him, it's like, why do you use HapBee? And he said, well, I'm an older pitcher. I'm in the bullpen. And for me, sleep is the single most important part of my recovery. The problem in professional sports is the margin of error. The margin of performance is so slight that you'll take any advantage you can. And so what a lot of athletes find themselves in is this weird loop where they start taking additives, natural or otherwise, to help them sleep. Now, the problem with that is an extension of the example we just gave with caffeine is, when you need to perform as an athlete, it's great to help you fall asleep and you sleep longer, and it's great. The problem is when you wake up, it's still in your system. Just because you woke up doesn't mean that the melatonin is gone and out of your system and has stopped affecting you. In fact, what it's done is it's kind of reduced your sharpness when you actually need the sharpness. And so what do they do to counteract that is they take uppers. They take stimulants. And now the game's over and they've used the stimulant to perform. How do you get to sleep? You're all jacked up. So you take more sleeping medication. And they get into these vicious cycles, these literally vicious 24-hour cycles of self-medication so that they can sleep when they need to sleep. And then they can be amped up and performing at the top level when they need to. But that has a horrible residual effect on the human body, right? And so the ability to affect those body changes without these external stimulants is really critical.
So we talked about sleep, which is, it's one of my favorite topics, but we talked about the morning coffee, so awake, essentially. What are other signals that you have created that people can choose from?
So what we've discovered is like about 60% of people who use and choose HapBee use it for sleep. The second most used would be focus. And we have a number of different focus signals for productivity. One is called email mastery. Another one is called creative boost, where you can relax and be creative at the same time. That happens to be one of my favorites. If I need to sit down and do a lot of work, if I'm working on a presentation or something that's particularly creative that needs me to remain focused, I'll use that. Um, just a funny little story. I first got one of these, and then I couldn't find it, and I was looking all around the house, and I found my 18-year-old son using it to study for exams. He was on the Focus app, and then it was stolen from him by his 13-year-old sister, who also had exams. So, they're outside of sleep. The next thing is focus and reactivity, and we have a bunch of blends around that. And then the third would be, again, I think a place where we intersect really strongly, which is calming, stress relief, both emotional and physical, like a pain and muscle ache relief. So those would be the top three: sleep, focus, and then calm relief.
So anybody that is listening that wants help in higher quality sleep, wants to be able to figure out how mentally to be focused, maybe they're just like chasing the squirrel all the time mentally, as well as maybe it was some anxiousness and a level of just constant worry. The calm would be a great solution.
And I think the thing there is, again, I'm going to presume that a lot of people who are watching or listening already understand the benefits of Sunlighten, but I think putting those two things together is going to kind of take you to the next level, and is really going to help you. Look, I enjoy that glass of red wine as much as the next guy, but I also know that, oddly enough, red wine also it helps me fall asleep, but it certainly doesn't help me stay asleep, because there's stuff that's going on in there that's hurting my body. I think searching for and finding a protocol that combines more natural elements. It sounds unnatural because we're talking about electrons, but the reality is there's nothing more natural to your body than electromagnetic stimulation. It's the core of your body operating system, and to be able to tap into that and to combine it with kind of a Sunlighten experience, I think is kind of like the holy grail here on natural wellness, non-chemical wellness.
Yeah, I love the habit stacking. Is what we call it here at Sunlighten. Benefit. I mean, one of my favorite things about my time and my Sunlighten is that I'm all about efficiency. I feel like I have to pack so much into one day to get it all done with work and business and my kids and everything. So I love if I can be in an environment where I can multitask for my body, right? So if I can be inside my Sunlighten, and I can also do some breath work, and I can do some meditation, or I can also, do the wearable, with the HapBee, and accomplish multiple benefits. I mean,
we've seen that with all forms of wearables, where our customers are combining it, and they've told us, I combine this with Calm, I combine this with aura tracking, I combine this with Mind Tap, I combine this with Sunlighten. To me, that's where somebody is really going to kind of achieve the higher level of, or attain a higher level of result.
So to that point, so let's just use the Calm for example. So if somebody is trying to do some meditation, and they're also choosing the Calm frequency of HapBee, is there any concern about too much electric, like too much?
I think it's a great question. Look, I think my first question when I encountered the company and the technology at the beginning was, okay, is it effective? Does it work? Does this make sense? And it took me a while. A lot of it was my own personal experience with it, and then listening to other people, and I checked that box. And then all of the data and the scientific stuff, and I said, yeah, this really works. Look, doesn't work for everybody, but 8 out of 10 people this is going to work for. And then of course immediately then my brain goes to, I mean, I was in the wireless business, was okay, is this safe?
Right.
So you got a little pin light battery in here that, I mean, it's tiny, and us on a single charge, this thing will last 18 hours. So I know it's not drawing a lot of power, but is it giving off a lot of power? This generates about 4 times less electromagnetic energy than a toaster, about 30,000 times less than a cell phone. It's about as powerful as an AM radio. It's on that part of the frequency. It's about as inert a signal as you could possibly get. The good news is that's where your natural physical system operates. It operates at a very inert level. So it's doing almost, I mean, the stimulation is so minute. When we record the actual molecular signals, we have to go into a lab that is, it's literally the quietest place on Earth. So you could listen to molecules, if you can imagine how quiet it is, because they resonate. You can imagine a molecule of caffeine in your body is making very little sound.
Right.
It doesn't take a lot. It just has to be at the right frequency to stimulate the bioreceptors. So, and we've got about 15 years of clinical trials, both in human subjects and in animals, that would indicate this is about as close to inert as you're going to find.
That's fascinating. Well, we're starting
certainly a lot less impactful to your body than drinking red wine and having it turn into formaldehyde in your liver.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that, you know, it's kind of, but I always, back when we started our company forever ago in our basement, one of the big questions, because nobody knew about infrared technology 20 years ago, and that the number one question was about safety, because they were familiar with hot air and hot rocks, and like, oh, like, I don't understand. How does this work? And one of my, favorite benefits is that you can do it, without side effects, and the risk reward ratio is off the charts. I mean, the risk is so low and the reward is just exponentially high. And so that hope that you talked about at the very beginning, that you try to offer people, becomes a reality, which is so powerful and transformational. And you're doing the same thing, which is great. I really applaud you. We're getting low on time, so I really we talked about so much that I'm just thinking, if I am watching this, I'm like, okay, I've learned so much. I would love if you have like one takeaway, one insight, one thing on this, wonderful product that you want people to remember. If they remember nothing else from the Sunlighten Spotlight, what would that be?
If you're looking for a natural alternative to a wellness issue that you're trying to solve, I can't imagine a better solution. I would say a better combined solution than HapBee plus Sunlighten. And I'm not coming at this from the guy who fell in love with it in a lab 15 years ago and built it, and who was emotionally attached to it. I'm not coming at it from a biohacking or wellness, believing that everything works. I'm the guy who thought that this was science fiction. And it changed my life in such a profound way. What we've tried to do as a result, learning from that, my own journey and the journey of most of the people who are on my team, is to afford people that same opportunity. Try the product. If you don't like it, we will happily give you your money back. Like, absolutely no risk. We're in this to help people and make their lives better. I can't be any more clear than that. Don't trust me. I mean, I'm here because it worked for me, but try it for yourself. If it doesn't work, we're here. We'll happily give you your money back.
Well, that was perfect and a great way to close. I do want, if you can share how people, if they do want to try it and they, do want to do their own investigation, how do they go about getting, one of these wonderful devices?
Well, come to our website, HapBee.com, HapBee.com. I know we've got a wonderful offer that we put together with you guys where people can save 20%, and they also are going to get a savings on a Sunlighten. And check it out.
So HapBee.com, HapBee.com, and check it out, and receive all these wonderful benefits and benefit from the science of that's been studied for many, many years. So thank you, Yona, so much for your time today and your knowledge and your wisdom. It's been extremely enlightening for me. I've been waiting all day to get the opportunity to ask you all these questions. So thanks for sharing. Thanks to everybody for listening. And we are closing down our Sunlighten Spotlight, and we will see you all next time. Thank you.